Recording. Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Chelsea, and I'm the museum educator at the Florida Museum of Natural History. I'm also one of the co-producers for the Fieldwork Fails show that we host at the museum. And I'm here today with Taylor Williams from Glory GNV, the
Hi, guys.
other co-producer of the program. And we're going to talk to you guys a little bit about how we got to this partnership, our journeys into storytelling, why we do fieldwork fails, what it's like to work with scientists, and that kind of stuff. So everyone say hi to Taylor.
Hi, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Chelsea and I have been excited about producing this. We've done a lot of work together at this point, so it's kind of a fun substitution if we can't have a show. So this is a good way to create some content and keep the storytelling community and the science community involved.
So with that, let's get started. Taylor, do you want to tell us a little bit about your journey into storytelling and how that kind of brought us together eventually?
Yeah, right, exactly. Sure. Yeah, the story in its entirety, I guess, is kind of long, but the short version is that I my background is in mental health, and I found that a lot of narrative storytelling was going on through the counseling realm, and I thought it could be used in a performing arts and creative way, like we use it through Guts and Glory on the stage. I did a fair amount of performing and comedy and writing and things like that. So it was sort of combining the art and craft of storytelling and performance with, I don't know, alternative ways of healing. But I was also aware that scientists were often grappling with how to use data and research in a storytelling way to make their work accessible and relatable and interesting. And then we met, Chelsea. And so Chelsea came to one of our, I mean, I think our first workshop ever for Guts
Yeah,
and
I think
Glory
it was the first
GNV.
one.
Yeah, yeah. And I learned about what she was doing. And then Chelsea, you started volunteering at our events and working the door, which you have done every month for 3 years. So shout out for that. But became more interested in storytelling too as something that could be involved at the museum, right? So you
Yep.
call me a co-producer. I am that, but you are certainly the creator of Fieldwork Fails. So, but can you explain kind of, I guess, why you love stories, but how you came up with the idea for Fieldwork Fails that came
Yeah,
out of
so
our meeting? Yeah.
if you are interested, I recently wrote a blog post that we're going to be posting up with this video as well. But like I say in there, I've always loved stories, and just was never really sure that storytelling was a concept or something that we might call it. So like even as a kid, I was always writing stories. Before I could write, I was having my mom transcribe the stories that I told her.
Oh, oh, that's so
And I
cool.
always have been like reading books. I'm like super bookworm. I'm just always used storytelling as kind of an escape and like a coping mechanism sort of thing without knowing that that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I went to school for anthropology in undergrad and then museum studies for my master's. And both of those kind of got me thinking about storytelling in a slightly different way. When I started working at the museum, I started thinking about how museums tell stories all the time, frequently using the objects in their galleries to tell
Mm-hmm.
stories. So when I first went to your workshop, I was interested in learning more about how I could do that. But sitting there, I realized we also are full of people with awesome stories, and that's kind of what I kind of clued into of what I wanted this program to be, focusing more on the people that are in museums and the scientists that
Mm-hmm.
we have and how they can share, as a way to both inform the public, but also connect to them and create some community around science.
Yeah, I was really struck by that when proposed the idea of doing fieldwork fails with scientists, specifically from the university and the museum and
Mm-hmm.
everything, because of how it was a part of community connections and education and all of those ways of reaching people. And I was sort of like, I was really struck by how that hadn't occurred to me before. So I mean, it had, but kind of like you're saying, I wasn't aware of its power or the potential structure around it. So it's sort of cool. The more we talk about this, Chelsea, the more I
Mhm.
realize that we were coming from our own, I don't know, our own area of expertise, but then we put them together in this way that was like the best kind of mix possible, and we
Yeah.
were both being like, oh my gosh, you know, these, this could have so much power, and we made it happen. And it's become this lasting
Yeah.
show. And
It's so
yeah,
awesome. Yeah, I feel like it wasn't until maybe our first show when we got the scientist on stage that and heard their stories live for the first time that I was like, wow, this is even cooler than I thought. Like
right,
I've
right.
been through I've been sat through in my job in like going through college so many different science lectures that were, they're interesting. And I usually come out of them learning a couple things. Whether or not I remember them a week later is uncertain. But when I left like our first Fieldwork Fails show, like those scientist stories are still in my mind. And like
Yeah,
when I think about what a scientist does, I no longer think about the dry kind of technical data that I was kind of in the mindset of before. And as an
hmm,
educator, being able to use those stories to teach people about what scientists do is just awesome. Um,
yeah, it's really changed my point of view. I would say, like, even on science and data and research in general. um and when I meet scientists, I'm kind of in awe, like, of what they do and how many possibilities, that of what it can mean to be a scientist, and what the experience can be like. So I've learned so much. And I think one of the neat things that we have learned through our experience of doing fieldwork fails this many times now is that we are seeing that, I think it was easy to assume that it was largely going to be attended by the science community as well. But
mhm.
what we started to find is that it was a mix of scientists and also people who just loved the art and the craft of storytelling. And a lot of that set of our audience showed so much appreciation and surprise for, like, oh my gosh, I wondered if these science stories would be kind of lame or dry, like you said. And then it's like some of the best storytelling they've ever seen. So that's kudos to the scientists as well. But
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
that's been a really cool thing to discover. And it's
Yeah.
given the scientists an opportunity and a platform to be themselves, and to, yes, be a scientist, but like be a human being first. And I think that's where we've found some of the power of these shows too.
Yeah, definitely the feedback we've gotten from scientists as them telling us that this is a way for them to have a creative outlet and a way
Yeah.
to speak to audiences that are so different than what they're used to, which at first is, they're always a little hesitant. We get the, wait, we can't use a PowerPoint, no
Right.
photos, kind of.
How much data do I need to
It's
have in this
just
presentation?
us. And they're,
Yeah.
the ones that do it are super brave to get up there because
Yeah.
it's totally out of their comfort zone.
Mhm.
And then they just do it. And then the audience reactions is like what really makes it
Yeah.
for them, I feel like.
Yeah, I think it's an empowering process to do it. And once they know that, I mean, this is true for anyone, but really taking the stage to specifically talk about failure is like, it is super brave. And even if the failure is funny or had a good outcome or whatever it is, it's hard to talk about. And so people have said, like, am I allowed to tell these stories of failure if my supervisor is going to be there? Or, you know, but what's really cool is that it gives the audience the strength, even if it's something that they never share, to say, it's okay to talk about when I haven't had a successful, when it's not a successful moment I'm talking about, or if I
Right.
just straight failed at something. That's empowering to be able, and comforting to be able to talk about that.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Hmm.
um so I wanted to give our audience right now a little bit of background on how we recruit the scientists and how we kind of make
Yeah.
the show happen. So I'll say recruiting scientists I've kind of taken on since I have their emails. uh,
Connection.
listservs. So I've kind of used my position within the museum to find scientists. They're used to getting emails from me saying, hey, will you come talk to a group of summer camp kids, or will you come host a table at this festival? So I use those resources I already have to kind of be like, so who wants to stand up in front of a large audience and talk about your failures with 0 PowerPoint slides and
Sounds fun.
just your voice?
Right.
And we actually got people who said, yeah, this is exactly what I've been wanting to do. Or people who are like, I think I'm funny. And then we say, you don't have to be funny. You just have to be yourself. And
Mhm.
I feel like a lot of times they're hilarious and they have no idea.
Yeah, they always
but-
are funny is the thing.
Yeah. And I'm like, you
Despite
don't
their
have to be funny.
insecurity.
You can stand up there and
Yeah.
cry. I don't care. Like, we just
Yeah.
want some emotion and personality and
Mhm.
enthusiasm.
Yeah.
So yeah, the first time we hosted the event, we got back some maybe 5 or 6 scientists, just what we were looking for. But from that, we've had scientists that attend the program and leave wanting to sign up to do the next one. And so
Right.
that's what makes this program like super special, is like the recruiting at this point isn't that hard,
Yeah.
because the scientists see their peers doing it and become interested in doing it themselves, which is really cool.
It is cool. And it's also cool, Chelsea, that you've created something where initially this feels really like off the beaten path for them, because we don't use PowerPoints or notes or
Mhm.
or data or anything like that. But then it actually ends up being something that a lot of scientists report that it helps them with their presentation skills and
Yeah,
public
for
speaking
sure.
and things like that, because they feel more permission to put funny anecdotes into their presentations, or they just have more confidence to be creative, or even just to be themselves.
Yeah,
And I think
for
it
sure.
shows us how valuable that is for everyone, but particularly the science community. So that's been powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once we get the scientists recruited, that's when I kind of turn them over this way to Taylor. And then you work with them the most in polishing their stories. Can you tell us a little bit about what that's like?
Yeah, sure. So they, just like any of our other storytellers for any other show, the scientists will submit usually like a paragraph or a page summary of their story. And we kind of workshop those. I help them get started. Scientists typically, I find them to be very exacting. So they want to know how to do it right, which is wonderful. It's funny how dealing with, I don't mean to say it like that, working with this cast is different than working with other ones. If there's some, like an obviously comedic theme that we would work with, for example. But we workshop those stories individually, and then we come together for what we call a read through. And it's basically a rehearsal of rough drafts. So everybody gets a chance to read their story. We give each other constructive feedback and support of what we really like in their stories. And then they do an edit and a rewrite, and they get a little individual coaching from me. And then they memorize their stories and they tell them on stage the night of the show. So it's a little bit of a process, but one where I think they get to enjoy the creative aspect of it. But that's kind of the start to finish model that we use, I guess.
Awesome. I'm
Yeah.
sure people are glad to kind of know about the behind the scenes stuff.
Right.
So I guess to kind of finish us off on this call, I kind of want to direct the question back to you again and kind of ask you where you see the show going in the future. And then I'll kind of respond to the same question.
Okay, great. Yeah. Oh man, Chelsea, you're the you have so many great creative ideas around this that, I do think that it's like your creation. I'm excited to see what you think of, but I actually think this storytelling show could be big. Like you've taught me about so many podcasts and live shows around science and storytelling that I wasn't aware of before. I think that this show has the potential to be a podcast, or maybe even like a live podcast sort of situation. I also think there's a cool potential that some of our scientists who have told stories have gone away and started a different version of this, or it's gotten them more interested in podcasting, for
Shout out to
example.
Randy.
And so, yeah, Randy Singer, what? So and then Nick Kaiser has done some cool stuff
for sure.
after being a part of a couple of shows. So, and others. So there's a lot of potential there for the individual scientists, I think, coming out of this. And then Chelsea, I think it's fun to mention too, just briefly, that we've given some talks together, and then we went to New York last June and gave a talk at a conference at the New York Institute of Technology, and that was very fun, about STEAM. And so that was, I think there are more opportunities for stuff like that, which is incredible that that's what's come out of this. But what do you see in the future?
So I just really hope to keep growing our audience, to start.
Yeah.
Right now we have, like Taylor said earlier, we have, a lot of people from the science community attending this, and a lot of people from the storytelling community. But I'd like to find more ways to get people who aren't part of either of these communities engaged, just because I think that storytelling is such a powerful method to, make connections between people who may think they don't have a place in these communities. They don't know, they don't think science is for them, or they aren't aware that that Gainesville has such a flourishing storytelling community. But I think by combining those two things, we can get people interested in science that maybe haven't been before. So that's kind of what I'm interested in. And I don't know the right way to do that just yet. But just trying to make it accessible for more people in our audience is a big thing I'm interested in doing. And whether that's through a podcast that we're talking about now, that may be something in the future, or I don't know, bringing it to places where people are already going and introducing it to them there. There's lots of different directions, and I'm really excited to see where it goes in the future, for sure.
Yeah, totally. And I think when we sell out at the museum, which which we do, like every show, it's about 150 people, right? Yep. But is that right? Okay.
Yeah,
So there have been, yeah. It's interesting because the Facebook invitation, which we know doesn't totally mean anything, it's not like real statistics or something, but there are thousands of people who have been interested in these events because of the communities that it reaches.
Right.
So I think that's really telling that people want this, and we just need to broaden who that audience is. So that's a really cool opportunity. Yeah.
And maybe that audience is watching us right now. Are you there?
And we're sucking you in through Zoom. That's right. This is actually just a recorded video.
Yeah, right.
We're done.
So any last thoughts or messages to send out before we close the call?
I don't know. Just know that the show is coming back, and and that there will be more. And so if you're a scientist who's interested, or that scientist in your life that should be doing these shows, think about it, and then also be ready to come and try it out. If science or storytelling aren't really your communities, that's okay. We're calling you to be a part of it too.
Yeah. So I'd like to second that. We hope to see all of you at our next live show. You can see us live and in person. And until then, stay safe and healthy, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.